All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Dr. Stacey. It's technically Stacey Fisher, but I go by Dr. Stacey in the office. I think it's probably been 7 months since I've spoke, so probably most of you don't remember me anymore in the office. So tonight I get to task us through going through the immune system. I'm not going to hit a lot about like what the immune system does, like the white blood cells and all that, because most of us know that's what really turns on the body. But before we start, I wanted to come out with, I had a patient this morning actually say, hey, did you hear on NPR that California is now actually prescribing food as medicine? So what they've done is they've actually gone through programs and they found that those that are on Medicare, I think it's Medicare, let me double check because I highlighted it for this reason. Medicaid, sorry, those that are on Medicaid, patients that are on Medicaid, they found that those that got food as medicine, which gives them free meals that basically help with whatever condition they're dealing with. So it could be a low sodium, it could help with diabetes, with low carbohydrate diets. They said it was 55% lower medical costs in the Medicaid patients that received the meals. They also said their hospital administration duration rates were significantly lower, and 23% who ended up in the hospital were more likely to be discharged back to their homes instead of into a long-term care or rehab facility. So that is pretty neat, like California being the first state to prescribe it as medicine. Actually, Philadelphia did most of the studies out on that with their a program that they call MANA, which the MANA program, let me find the name because I am not going to remember this. Where did it go? Metropolitan Area Neighborhood Nutrition Alliance in Philadelphia was the original company that started this with low-cost patients who couldn't afford to buy different foods for when they're sick. And what they found is that most people, when they get sick, aren't using foods anyway correctly, so they're tending to eat things that they just feel like they want, and a lot of times those are building on and helping their systems go downhill. So kind of cool. California, not only are they basking in the sunshine, which we don't have right now, they're also trying to do actually food as medicine prescriptions, which I think is very exciting. Maybe someday we'll get there. So tonight with the immune system, we're going to talk a little bit about things that you can see, like what are the symptoms of like a cold, flu, bronchitis, that kind of things. And then different things that you can do at home to try to help to get through that. And then, of course, when do you need to go in and see your doctor? Okay? So colds, viral in nature. We always want to hit viral and bacterial so people understand. Most of these are going to be viral that I will cover tonight because it seems to be the most common things that we end up with. We are in cold and flu season already, even though it seems early. We have had a lot of upper respiratory tract infections come in, and a couple patients that have already been diagnosed with H1N1 flu. So that is definitely going around, so you kind of need to know what can I do at home? What should I be doing? So the symptoms of a cold, most of us know these. We know we're going to get a runny nose. We know we're probably going to sneeze, and then the runniness tends to get congestion in the lungs. Some people get a low-grade fever. Now somebody's low-grade fever may be somebody's actual normal temp. So I have some patients that their low-grade fever is basically a 99 or it is even a 98 because they run in a 96 or 97 as a normal temperature. If you don't take your oral temperature normally, you really won't know what your normal temp is. So sometimes that's important as well, is to take your temp throughout the days or the month and average those out and find out what is my normal temp. So then if I do get sick, besides going, yeah, I feel a little warm, I know I'm under the weather, what do you do? So a lot of what I'm going to talk about tonight is also being on the front line. So when you start to notice symptoms, we really need to jump on what to do instead of saying, well, you know, I just don't feel good. I'm going to wait 24 hours. By the time that 24 hours hits, usually you're in catastrophic mode and the body is struggling to keep up. Flu, another big one that's going around right now. Now they're viral. Most of us know this. We usually know that, okay, I'm definitely going to have a fever. I have body aches. A lot of people will deal with chills. Now, sometimes the chills don't come within that first 24 hours. Sometimes they're right after that. Congestion. So the congestion and runny nose seems to be similar to a cold, which is why some of the things that we carry actually work for colds and flus. And everybody knows that when we have the flu, we're very fatigued. We just don't feel like going out. Sometimes with this one, obviously we do get vomiting or diarrhea. Most commonly right now, everybody is saying it's hitting the digestive tract, so there's going to be more diarrhea that is hitting. So that's been the one this year so far. Bronchitis, another big one. This is basically where a lot of people will notice it's more within the chest. Okay, it doesn't necessarily settle within the nose, it's going to settle within the chest. We may be coughing up mucus. Sometimes people don't cough up mucus right away. Mainly when we listen to it, we hear a lot of congestion or wheezing within the front lobes of the lungs, okay? Most people also say, I have shortness of breath. Okay, so colds can sometimes go into bronchitis. Bronchitis is usually something that we will diagnose differently when we listen to the lungs. Colds tend to stick right in the sinus cavities. Now, other big thing that a lot of times we don't talk enough about is usually sinus infections are going to be viral or fungal. They don't end up in the bacteria range. So mainly your bacterials are going to be your strep. That's the one main thing that people run into. So, and I also have a picture of strep. So I like this picture. I tried to pull up pictures so that everybody could see. Like when you look in the back of somebody's mouth, if they still have their tonsils, you will see that white on the tonsils. And that will actually show with strep. That's the most common symptom that people will see, or sign that people will see besides doing a throat swab. Okay? Obviously sore throat with strep. Now, remember that strep is one of those that can actually be very contagious, so anytime we get sick, please stay home. Don't go visit anybody. Don't go out. Stay home for at least the first 2 to 3 days, so then at least you're not passing this on. That's one of the biggest things that we find is most people will go out and do stuff, and then they pass it on. Now, there will be one thing that I will say later that we do want you to come in and get adjusted, but we are, unfortunately, we're quite used to getting everybody bombarding us with whatever they have going on, so it does build our immune system. I like seeing people when they're sick. It gets me stronger with my immune system. So strep, you also have a fever, and these are usually higher fevers, like 101, 102. And then the lymph nodes just not only underneath the chin, they do go down the neck, where most people will have some lymph nodes. I have seen some in what they call the posterior auricular, which is behind the ears, being swollen as well. So we don't talk much about chiropractic in this office. Even though we are all chiropractors, we don't tend to talk about this as much. So I chose to start out tonight with why the chiropractic adjustment is so important for the immune system. There is some really old research, and the research on the left in the box is from 1989, so quite a bit older, and the research, well, you're right, yeah, on the right is 1994. There is also newer research that has come out. Basically what I wanted to touch on is showing how much chiropractic can actually boost the immune system, what it can do. We know that when a patient or a child or even an adult comes in with an ear infection, when we adjust them, it's usually 24 hours later that they already have symptom relief. Now, is it fully gone? Not always, but most of the time we can get most of those symptoms gone, and then the body is then turned back on to heal it. And that's mainly due to all of this over here. When we do it upper cervical, which is neck, I know not everybody knows what the cervical is. When we do those adjustments, we increase your T cells. And this one was a study on HIV, so another viral. Anytime you increase T cells, you're going to increase the body's response to viruses. So we know that after an adjustment, within 15 minutes, you're already producing more T cells. So if you're sick and you come in and get adjusted, that adjustment is automatically going to boost your immune system and help you fight to get through that. So we can drop off a couple days off of the sickness for that, which is pretty big when it comes to the common cold. Is about 10 days long. So if we can get it to 7, hallelujah, that's wonderful. Now they also have, showing under here for the 1989, what they did is they looked at children that had chiropractic care and children that never had chiropractic care. So big ones that I like to look at, because the otitis media, so your ear infections. So no occurrence of otitis media was almost 70%, so they really didn't get any ear infections. And then with not chiropractic care, 20% had no occurrence. So that is, to me, is a big deal, because I know that every time I adjust a neck, I also, if I have somebody that's mucousy, they'll start draining about the time they get off the table. So I am breaking up and I'm allowing the body to turn on its immune system to get rid of the mucus, which is mainly your problem. It's holding in all of your, they call it pus in the medical literature. I don't know why they call it pus, but it's mucus. So we can help to break that down and really get that working. The cool thing too is if you look at the rubella measles, the mumps, the chicken pox, and the German measles, we're almost, you know, pretty close of occurrences. And this was before vaccines became really, really more aggressive than what we were doing. So that was kind of neat. I was like, oh yeah, see, it does help with the immune system and help people get stronger. Tonsillitis is another big one. Tonsillitis, most people with chronic tonsillitis are going to get those taken out, so they'll get chronic strep infections. It is really, really helpful to keep those tonsils. They are a clearer of your toxins, but obviously if they're touching, I have a lot of patients, I look in the back of their throat and they are touching, that's going to create a problem over time, because those tonsils are definitely filled at all times and the body's not getting rid of that. Some bodies just don't go through that process really well. Okay? So I pulled out this research article I had found, I absolutely loved because it had so much info, and it is from 2017 of November, so very, very recent research. And this basically is going to talk about zinc, vitamin C, and D, and there's some echinacea in here as well. So our main things that we use in the office is we'll always put patients on vitamin D around the time that school starts through the time that school ends, because that's about the time as well that we start to lose our sunshine. We do live north of the equator. We do have higher vitamin D requirements. So if you're not actually getting your vitamin D levels checked, you really have no idea where you're at. So it is a recommendation of mine for my patients to at least get a vitamin D sometime in the spring/summer, and then usually in the winter, because I want to see like how well is our supplementation doing for you, because you want to keep your vitamin D25 hydroxy in the 60 to 80 range, and some of them are up to 100 now. They're actually leaving those into the 100 range. So for us to start early, then by the time we're really low on sun, and usually when our bodies start to show vitamin D depletion, which is about December, you can prevent colds and flus with that. So some of this research is showing here. The other thing that we will use a lot is we'll use UltraFlora Immune Booster through the winter, which I will talk about as we get a little farther in, and vitamin C, because vitamin C shows it's more preventative. It does work during the cold, but it has more research as a preventative. Okay, so we're starting with zinc. So zinc down here. So, and these are different reviews that they have done, so that you're going to see on the side when the review was done. And it basically talks about, I circled some of the big ones, the zinc administered within 24 hours of onset of symptoms, reduce the common cold symptoms in healthy people. This is something we don't talk a lot about as much in this office, is zinc. And mainly it's because we don't have a really great zinc lozenge. Like, you cannot find a good zinc lozenge out on the market. Sad to say, but most of them have a ton of sugar in them. So you kind of give the zinc and then you give sugar to keep the virus going. That really doesn't do us much good. So what we've searched and researched, and we did finally find a liquid that will work, and it's a 15 milligram zinc liquid. So that'll be in the office next week, which is very, very exciting for us because we haven't had anything great like that. So we are actually going to start to use it for gargling with echinacea to be the double whammy to kind of knock things out. Because if you can catch things right when you start to feel the scratchy throat, or right when you start to feel like things are starting to build up in my sinuses, you can prevent this very quickly. And most people, by doing that, can actually stop it and not even show any symptoms. So very important. Most of the studies are done up to 15 to 20 milligrams of zinc a day. Now, if you take too much at one time, you do lose some sensation to your tongue, but it comes back in about an hour. That's just the downside of zinc. Most people too, if they have enough zinc, they will actually taste like a metallic taste in their mouth. Most people used to like suck on the copper penny when they were little and notice like, hey, like it was a game, like, do you taste that at all? We used to do that, so maybe we're the only weird ones in our group, but we would always do that and see if we actually tasted the metal. And those of us that tasted the metal, it was kind of like you won the game. There was really, I don't even know, it's better than the pod challenge, right? So I don't know. Weird things my family did. So the other thing, this is more zinc. So what they did in 2007, they looked at another double-blind placebo-controlled trial of 50 healthy subjects. And these are older age groups, so it's 55 to 87. And they took zinc every day for 12 months. So the ones in the supplemented group is which 15 milligrams of elemental zinc, which is technically our zinc AG in this office, so this is not a liquid. What they found is that the infection was significantly lower in the supplemental group. So that's really great to hear, because there are things, zinc is one of the most common nutrients that we will find also in the office that are depleted. Do you know what zinc is used for in the body? Anyone? It's for gut health. It does help to repair the digestive tract. Obviously an immune system builder. So two big things, and it also works with the thyroid. It's another big one. We have, like, everybody's talking about hypothyroid. They're talking about Hashimoto's. So some of that has to do with our zinc deficiencies. So it's very, very important to make sure that we are getting zinc. So, and this can happen, obviously through some of your diet, but I don't think it's as widely available through our foods anymore, just because we are depleting our soil of nutrients. We aren't getting as much out of our foods. And let's be honest, most people stick to 10 different foods every day. That's about zinc. Okay, Dawn, I'm going to need help on this. I know some of your nuts and seeds. What else am I missing? Greens. Some of your greens will have those. Oh yeah, pumpkin seeds will definitely have them. I'm trying to think of the most common one. I believe it's beans. Yeah, beans. I always forget beans. Darn beans. Most everybody's trying to stay off of beans now for some reason, because the new diets say no beans. But beans are great fiber. Fiber helps to pull toxins out of the system. So we do like beans. That's actually something that's recommended often in the health coaching area. 2012, there was another study, another double-blind randomized. These ones were basically patients. They didn't really give you the age range, but they did males and females, which is nice to see when they do both males and females, and then you can see that the equality of it. So they used 1 gram of vitamin C plus 10 milligrams of zinc, and the supplementation with the vitamin C and zinc represent an efficacious measure, which means it did help. They didn't give you how long, what time, shortness of colds. The hard part is, how do you decide that you shorten the cold from one group to the other? Everybody is different, so that's always the interesting thing. Now, I know from experience, the more often that I am consistent with my supplements on vitamin D and C, it's been years since I've been sick. Now, if I see something coming on, if I catch it really early with echinacea, I always gargle and swallow my echinacea, and I usually do it hourly on that first day. I have not been sick. And we just had, I work with teenagers with equestrian teams and the horses, and we just had a bunch of kids come up with, I had one with H1N1 and another one with bronchitis. They were actually sharing my camper, which was fantastic. And I didn't get what they got, thankfully, but it's because I also hit it early and fast. Dr. Greg can also tell you that he's used some of the UltraFlora immune booster gargling and swallowing, and that knocked out a scratchy throat that was starting for him as well. So we all know that, like, if we catch it early, we can usually prevent it. 2002, another study. We'll kind of run through these a little faster. Zinc supplementations substantially reduce the incidence of pneumonia. Pneumonia is a big one. That tends, if you let it sit too long, it's going to go into pneumonia. Everybody knows pneumonia is a little devil to get out of there. And children who had also received vitamin A. So it's very important. Zinc is one of those that helps with all the connective tissues to help with the mucolytic lining and help to build that back up so that the body can fight this off. Combination of echinacea and zinc with selenium and ascorbic acid, which this is basically the ultrapotent C, will alleviate the symptoms of a upper respiratory tract infection in a correlation to COPD. So echinacea also has a major effect within the viruses. We love echinacea. Echinacea is something that we use often in this office, and it's one of the go-tos if I tell patients to have what they need at home. Vitamin C, D, and echinacea are always my 3 majors to keep at home. And then, because in essence, liquid echinacea can do anything with the throat and help with mucus when it starts to come on. You can also use it on cuts. Like most people don't put it on cuts because it does have some alcohol in it. It will burn a little bit, but it has, like I use it on poison ivy, anything that I need to dry. If I get a cut, I'm automatically slapping echinacea on there, trying to kill off anything that I possibly can so then I don't get sick. Okay? Another one in 2014, zinc acid amino acid chelate had a better effect on reducing the incidence of acute respiratory tract infection in children. So this is, as you're going to see, zinc obviously helps with upper respiratory, mainly. Okay? Vitamin D, wonderful things about vitamin D. Bergman is like the big guy that really came out and did a lot of the studies on vitamin D. He really brought this into light about how much we have depleted our vitamin Ds in our body, especially since you're north of the equator, how much more you need, because 400 to 800 IUs is not going to cut it. There's no way. They now say that kids that from the age of 0 to 2, if they get 1,000 IUs of vitamin D, can increase their incidence of allergies and asthma, which is wonderful, up to the age of 35. But we do recommend vitamin D because seasonal affective disorder, depression, can also be a problem without vitamin D. So you a lot of times can stop that in its tracks by adding in vitamin D. So vitamin D supplementation increased the probability of staying free of respiratory tract infections during their study year. So versus the placebo, they had reduced respiratory tract infections. So that's pretty neat. 2015, another one in the group of children with respiratory disorders exhibited vitamin D deficiency. And that's very common. If we have somebody that consistently gets upper respiratory tract infections, if you go in and test their vitamin D, it will be low. So vitamin D shouldn't be called a vitamin. It really should be called a prohormone. There's not a cell in your body that doesn't require vitamin D to work. So it's very important to have that. That's why you have so much skin. Because back before we wore clothes and before we lived in like colder environments, we were in the sun all the time. These receptors are on your skin. We get the best from the sun, but now we're, outside of that, we're going to have to supplement to help support that. Vitamin C, another great one. And our vitamin C with the ultra potency, we'll talk a little bit about that as we get a little bit farther along. But these are just talking about just plain vitamin C, which is ascorbic acid. So you're going to see some of those are just going to be vitamin C. Some will have some chelated nutrients in them. So vitamin C plus 10 milligrams of zinc. Once again, here's the fun zinc. Basically, they got a relief from runny nose and mucus higher in the active treatment group than the placebo group. You also see in the presence of increased activity of pulmonary inflammatory cells with bronchial asthma, it basically decreased the time that they were sick. And that was basically 5 grams a day. I spelled that wrong, but that's okay, for 35 days. So that's only like a month using vitamin C, and that's with ultra potency, that would be 5 a day. So, and usually if you go up to straight 5 grams of ascorbic acid a day, which is just plain vitamin C, you could create diarrhea. So plain vitamin C ascorbic acid, one of the things that they will tell you to do to know how much you need during your sickness is you'll take a gram about every couple hours until you reach diarrhea stage. When you reach diarrhea stage, you know, okay, that took me 6 to get there, 5 grams is what I need. Okay, and then you keep taking it until that creates it. But that is with plain ascorbic acid. With the ultra potency, we don't create diarrhea because it is a chelated. So it actually has other minerals bound to it to help it get into the system faster. There's also a downside with ascorbic acid by itself. Ascorbic acid, when taken at the time of a cold or flu, will decrease your immune system for 24 hours before it kicks it back in. So that 24 hours is pretty important. We want to keep that inflammation down. We don't want to let it ramp up. So that's where the chelated vitamin C actually shows studies where it immediately starts kicking in with the immune system because there is some zinc and other selenium things on board. Okay?
That's what a chelated vitamin C is exactly?
Has other nutrients with it.
What would it be called? Like?
Well, with the ultra potency, it's going to be, that's our chelated vitamin C. So you have to actually look at the label. It's not going to just be ascorbic acid. So it may have some calcium, magnesium, zinc, selenium in there. So you have to look and make sure it's just not ascorbic acid. Okay? Good question. Vitamin C supplementation significantly reduces the frequency of the common cold, but had no apparent effect on the duration or severity of the common cold. So that means that if you take it, basically ascorbic acid by itself, that's at 24 hours that allows that body to ramp up that you're going to see that it's not going to decrease the duration. Now they do have studies on the ultra-potency that it does decrease the duration of the common cold because it immediately kicks in the immune system within the first couple hours of taking it. Okay, these are all the different things we have in the office that you could use. That's a lot, right? So Histoegg Plus, this is basically a stinging nettle product. This actually breaks up mucus. So think of this, a lot of people tell me, oh, it's kind of like Mucinex. I'm like, very similar type of thought process. It is breaking up the mucus. It's allowing your body to absorb it instead of having to expel it. This one does make you urinate. Just know that. Anytime you're taking an herb, you will urinate because you're trying to get rid of the toxin. So it's important to drink more water while you're taking these. Okay? Histoegg Plus, there is a kids version, and that's Kinderhist. So it's a chewable versus a swallow. So it's basically half the dose of the adult version. Okay? Anytime you get mucus, that's kind of one that we go to as well. So there's the Kinderhist as well. Alamax. Does anybody know what Alamax is in our office?
Mushrooms.
Garlic. You're thinking of Mycotaki or Immucor. Yep, but that's, yeah, so this is garlic. So you can actually spray this in your mouth and it helps with sore throats. But it does taste like garlic, just to let you know. I get a lot of patients like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm okay, well, I have other options for you. I'm just giving you what I have. Garlic is very good for antifungal. It does work on bacteria, but there is some side notes that it can work on some viral. It's not as strong as some of the other antivirals, but we do mix it for some patients. This one is great for ear infections, but we don't use a spray. We actually have a liquid for kids, and we drop that in the ear, and it takes the pain out of that ear infection. So, Bronchicin, I'm going to hit that one in a second because I have a slide on that one. Ultra Potent C1000, this is the chelated vitamin C. This is fat soluble, so this vitamin C will stick with you longer than just plain ascorbic acid because that is water soluble. Due to the other minerals that are with this, it does stay with the body longer. So that's why you can get away with doing a lower dose long term throughout the winter, and it will help to prevent you from getting sick. Spectra C500. This is a little different vitamin C. This is vitamin C attached to a methoxyflavone molecule. That has studies for weakening within the lungs. So patients that chronically get upper respiratory tract infections, I will tend to recommend this one over the ultra potency because it can strengthen the lung tissue. Side note, it also works for those who bruise easily, because it's a capillary integrity weakness. The studies on the methoxyflavone vitamin C is that it can help strengthen those capillaries so you don't bruise as easily. And usually those are also circulation issues, so patients with Raynaud's, this is something that helps them as well. Zinc AG. So we talked a little bit about the zinc. I put the zinc AG in there because before we found the liquid zinc, this is the only one I had. So the liquid zinc would be the one that I would put in here for when we're sick, gargling and swallowing with that. It does say it's about 4 droppers for 15 milligrams. So an adult would take 4 droppers, a child would take 2. Okay, and you can have, if kids don't know how to gargle, they can swallow it and they will still get results out of it. But it's best gargled and swallowed because you want to get it around the tonsils and the throat. Zinc AG we do use for long term when we have patients that we know have zinc deficiencies or their zinc to copper ratio on their blood work is off. We try to build the zinc up, so we will use the zinc AG. Throat Calm is a homeopathic throat spray for basically when you can't gargle echinacea every 5 minutes to get things working. The Throat Calm is the in-between. So it's more of the homeopathic in there does help and does have some studies to to clear up the sore throat and the mucus production. But I use this one if you get that chronic tickle where it feels like you need to cough all the time. This one works great. So, Immune Redding. I brought out Immune Redding because this is something we don't use very often. And I love Immune Redding because basically this one is done off of German research. And what they had found is these are for those patients who get chronic sinusitis. And they know now that chronic sinusitis is 82% of them is more fungal than viral. So the Immune Redding basically has your N-acetylcysteine, which helps your body detoxify. It also has basically a thyme extract, a turmeric root extract, bromelain, which if you take this with food will act like a digestive enzyme because bromelain is a digestive enzyme, berberine, and licorice root. So the licorice helps to upregulate the immune system. This is a lower dose licorice as well, so patients with high blood pressure can take that because it's such a low dose. Now licorice by itself with high blood pressure, not a good plan. And this one will not raise the blood pressure, okay? So if you have something and you're looking and you see in the licorice, you need to know how much is in there if you're somebody that's on a blood pressure med or has potential to have a high blood pressure. But this one is very good for chronic sinusitis. We don't tend to use it as much because it's not one that's usually on our radar. We're usually looking at Histoeg Plus, Kinderhist. We're going to go to Bronchicin, vitamin C all the time. Alamax is another big one that we use. So this one, if I have chronic, somebody that's had, and I had a patient that had come in and she was on an antibiotic every month for a year due to sinus infections. I started her on this and I kept her on it for a whole year. That year she didn't have any, and the next 2 years she didn't have any. Then she started school, started getting some stress, and some of them started to come back, so she went back on it. And it has prevented her sinus infections.
Do you think that it lasted 3 years after 1 year on it?
It did for her, yeah. She hadn't had any sinus infections for the next 2 years after that. It's crazy, but it does work. Echinacea, we talked a little bit about echinacea. We prefer the liquid form. Now I have seen the other forms within stores with golden seal and other things, but most of them usually also have sugar within them. And whenever you see sugar on the label with any of your immune products, be a little leery because that sugar can feed. So certain forms, they do it to try to make it more palatable, but the types, I always tell patients, I'm sorry, it tastes terrible, but it's going to get you through this and it's going to make you feel better. So it's not going to be great. I have a golden seal echinacea at home that I had picked up because I had run out of my echinacea. I was on the road. I didn't feel like it worked as well, but I'm used to basically my echinacea just getting rid of it right away.
Acquired taste.
It is an acquired taste. See, and the funny thing is if you start kids out on these things like the echinacea or bronchicin, they think they're great. And they absolutely love them. If you start them at a young age, they have no problem. It's like something that's yummy to them. I obviously started too late, so I don't have that acquired taste. I'm going to cover the UltraFlora Immune Booster later. UltraFlora Acute Care, another probiotic that we have. This is one that we will always use following an antibiotic. If you've been on an antibiotic, if you're not taking this with your antibiotic, now note, if you ever take a probiotic with an antibiotic, it needs to be at least 4 hours away from that antibiotic. You can render your antibiotic useless if you take your probiotic. So acute care has more of the Saccharomyces boulardii in it. It also has Lactobacillus acidophilus and Bifidobacterium. The boulardii is the most important because that actually helps to kill any candida, which tends to be overrun when we take antibiotics. And it can prevent the antibiotic-related diarrhea 6 weeks down the road. Usually we don't end up with that if we take the probiotics either right after, and on average I'll tell everybody 1 month post your antibiotic you're going to take this for 1 month. Or if they take it during, I still want it to go for a month and then we'll swap out. Nasanol is what I'm holding in my hands. This one is so funny because I asked Dr. Denbor, I go, so doc, what do you know about Nasanol? And he looks at me and goes, do we have Nasanol? I'm like, well, that's a good thing I'm showcasing that tonight. So Nasanol is actually one that I haven't used as often, but now the more that I've researched it and found that this is an old Chinese herbal formula, it really it works for headaches, it works for the mucus production, and it works for throat drainage and sore throats. And it actually is a lower dose. You can get away with a much lower dose than using Histoeg. You can get away with 2 a day instead of 6 to 8 a day of the Histoeg. And it has more beneficial properties because of the herbals that are in here. This has been, the Chinese herbal formulas have been around for hundreds of years. So this is something that is very little used in our office, but 1 bottle is a 10-day supply if you do 2 a day. Well, 3 a day, sorry. If you do 3 a day, because there's 30. So wonderful, like, and this really does work. I actually used this I think it was last year for something that I thought I had coming on, and it might have been a dairy reaction, I don't even know, I don't care, but I got rid of it. And 10 days I felt great. I was like, that's amazing. So acylococcinum. This was big last year. Does anybody remember acylococcinum from last year? So if you look online and you do the old Google search of acylococcinum, the first thing that pops up, unfortunately, is the one that says acylococcinum and doesn't work. Well, if you've ever used, we call it OSC in this office, if you've ever used OSC and you catch it at the right time within that first 24 hours, you don't get the flu. It's wonderful. This is actually meant for the flu. So when you start to feel those aches and pains, you know, like, oh, I'm starting to get a fever, I'm getting a little chills, I'm getting some body aches. If you hit this immediately, it's tubes of homeopathics. Those are little pellets that you need to suck on and get within the saliva. They take 3 of those a day, every 6 hours for 2 days. No fail. It works wonderfully. So that actually went off the shelves for how long last year, Adam? Do you remember?
At least a couple months.
Yeah. So it was off our shelves. We couldn't even get it in. Nobody could get it in. So it went out on Facebook and went viral. So it's a wonderful product for flu prevention. So this is what a lot of people ask me, do you get the flu shot? And I'm like, no, I don't get the flu shot. There's many reasons why, which I don't need to go into, but this is my prevention if I start to notice anything. If not, I also use my vitamin C and vitamin D all year round. So alpha CF, another homeopathic. We try to do some homeopathics because we have a lot of kids, and kids can't swallow usually. So, and at that point, really, they don't like to take anything when they start to feel bad. So the nice thing about the homeopathics is they can dissolve them. You can crush them in between 2 spoons for a lot of them, and kids will take those with a little bit of water, and they're great to go. Alpha CF stands for alpha for cold and flu. Okay, this is something that first line of defense for kids, we will jump right on this. Dosage is on the bottle, it's a homeopathic, it does work as long as you catch it early enough. Everything it talks about, its prevention is worth an ounce of cure, right? Or wait a minute, I don't even know how that goes. How's that saying go? 1 ounce of prevention is for a pound of cure? I don't know, something like that. So, anyways, I digress. Bronchicin. Bronchicin is one that we use often. We also have a Bronca Prep syrup for kids for that cough, and that helps with a cough at night. Bronchicin, basically these are your ingredients. It's for bronchial restriction, so those that are struggling to breathe, they can hear little crackles when they cough. It's all the mucus that's building up in the bronchioles. So it eases the tightness and the spasms of coughing, so those that have to cough and almost feel like they're going to cough out a lung, Bronchicin is where you're going to start. Bronchicin is usually dosed out at 10 drops 3 times a day. Works great if you need that cough suppressant for the kids at night. That's where the Bronca Prep comes in. This one is another herb, and don't expect the herbs to taste good. They just won't. So sorry. But thyme thins the mucus within the lungs, so you don't have to piggyback this with Nasanol or Histoag. You can do it by itself. So it has everything in there. And the licorice root alleviates the throat and bronchial infections. Licorice root is basically acts almost like a steroid for some patients. It's an anti-inflammatory. So that's why licorice is used in some of your your colds and flu stuff, because the viruses, you want to decrease the inflammation, get that body's healing to happen. 10 drops 3 times, or 10 drops 3 times a day. We do go higher with some patients, but most of the time 10 gets you done. UltraFlora Immune Booster, one of the probiotics. So the probiotics in this office, most of them have UltraFlora in front of them, and then what it actually is. So Immune Booster is basically, the research behind this is your Lactobacillus plantarum, Heal 9. So note to probiotics. Let's talk a little bit about probiotics and quality of probiotics. Most of your probiotics have, basically it'll say Lactobacillus plantarum, and it won't have this Heal 9. Downside of that, I have a dog. I have a German Shepherd. This tells you, when you look this up, you can find all the research that this bacteria does. When you look up just plantarum, you don't know if this is genetically drifting. You don't know if it's exactly going to do what it's supposed to do. These have been studied that they will not genetically drift. They will stay up to expiration date that are on the bottles. So it's very important to know what are your strains in there. The only one that does not carry a strain number or anything after it is Saccharomyces boulardii at this point. Okay, so Lactobacillus plantarum, Heal 9, and the Lactobacillus paracasei 8702. That's just basically how many strains they tested to find this, or they numbered them out, so that's where it's at. So basically this probiotic blend, when taken over 12 weeks, decreased upper respiratory tract infections. This also works, as I said, for scratchy throats. You can open the capsule, put it in water, gargle and swallow, do that a couple times a day, and that can actually clear that sore throat for you. It is meant for anything sinus or lung related. I'll talk about, yes.
Will that have the same effect as like Spectrum?
UltraFlora Spectrum?
Probiotic?
No, because this is only for upper respiratory, sinus and lungs.
Okay, so it's not doing anything really to your gut bacteria?
There's the pericaceae and the plantarum are more for just the upper respiratory. There are some of those in the gut bacteria, but your Spectrum has Lactobacillus acidophilus, the bifidobacterium. It also has some of the Saccharomyces and then the other forms of lactobacillus in there. So that one's more of a broad spectrum for gut. This one's a spectrum for only lungs. Just like there's an UltraFlora Women's, which is for the urinary tract. So that's only bacteria for the urinary tract. Now there is some that is in the gut as well, but it's mainly for the urinary tract. That's where the studies come from. Okay? One that I didn't talk about, which I feel like I should have and it wasn't on the slides, is Cannabactin AR. If anybody's ever taken it, they'll know exactly what it is. You burp up what tastes like oregano oil. So it's an aromatic. It's meant to be an aromatic. It has oregano, basil, sage, and thyme within it. It is really meant for upper respiratory tract infections as well, but we also use it to kill off, because the oregano is very potent, you can actually use it for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. But the beautiful thing is when you burp it up, the aroma, the oregano, is the strongest that you will taste, and that basically goes in and coats the sinuses and the lungs and helps to kill off any viruses that are in there. It is a wonderful product. Must be taken with food. If you take it away from food, you will have a sour stomach. It's just the way it is. But we don't give that product enough go for with upper respiratory tract infections. I've used it consistently all along for intestinal bacterial overgrowth, but I do use it for my upper respiratory tract infections, and it seems to kick it within 10 days. Usually before that, but that's only if I can get my patients to take it 3 times a day like they're supposed to. Some people have said that they have frozen it and you don't get the burping up, but the burping up is what you're supposed to have to help with the sinuses. That's what it's meant to do. Okay?
What's it called?
Cannabactin AR. Now, are there many more on our shelves, like the kids we actually have in the rooms, the back to school essentials like vitamin D, vitamin C, probiotics? Absolutely. Should everybody be on a probiotic through the winter? I'm a firm believer that probiotics are helping. 70% of your immune system is in your gut. It's very important to take care of that biome down there. But this is also where foods come much more important. This is also the time that tends to be where, you know, we're going to come, we just passed, no, actually we haven't even passed Halloween yet. How on earth? Wow, I almost thought we passed Halloween. That's terrible. Halloween, always the week after, we'll have some sick kids. You increase sugar, you increase sicknesses. It's awesome. Thanksgiving, same thing happens because people go crazy on pies. Christmas, always cookies, right? There's always eggnog, everything. So the more, like, always think we don't touch enough. I didn't touch hardly at all on diet. Actually, I basically didn't touch on diet. So diet is very, very important. No matter what you do, stay hydrated. Half your body weight in ounces of water, up to 100 ounces a day, is what you're supposed to be doing every day. Think about that. You need to get the colors, the rainbow of colors of vegetables and fruits within your diet, preferably more vegetables than fruits. On average, 5 to 7 cups of vegetables a day is necessary. That's a lot, I understand. But that is what helps your body heal. You've got to give your body the nutrients to make sure that it goes through the healing process. And of course, I know there's other diet plans that are out there that are the rage right now, but don't forget that the vegetables are okay on these diets. A lot of them are free range. Just don't be going crazy on your potatoes. They have more starches, tend to be more sugar related for patients. Okay? Any questions? Yes?
What about essential defense?
You know, I didn't cover that one, and then mainly because I've totally forgot about it until Doc said, hey, are you going to cover essential defense? I'm like, yes, I should. So essential defense is more of it's a pre-product. It has to be taken within the first 24 hours. If you miss it within the first 24 hours, it doesn't work. So if it's sitting on the shelf at the store and you get sick and you come here 6 hours later, you're 6 hours behind. But it can help. Essential Defense for me is hit or miss because most of my patients are not taking it within the correct time. It needs to be taken 2 every half hour for the whole bottle, and that whole bottle lasts throughout the day. And if taken correctly, it can prevent colds and flus. But most patients miss it because it's sitting here at the store, and they're like, I probably don't need to have that into my cabinet, so I'll be okay. And I'm like, then we have other things. So the nice thing too is with some of the homeopathics like the OSC, I've seen it at Walmart, I've seen it at Myers, so that is at least if you start to feel it and it's on a weekend and you forgot to pick it up, you can find it sometimes. When the flu season really hits, even though we're starting to see H1N1 now, patients are going to really be hitting that again. They'll start grabbing that, and that may go off the shelves again about January because it had a big hit last year and it really did well for everyone. So yes.
Can you take preemptive chiropractic adjustments?
They actually say that those that get adjusted once a month have 68% less healthcare costs and 48% less colds and flus at just once a month.
Wow.
So that's pretty amazing. And that was actually a Medicare study done about 8 to 10 years ago.
So that would just be a general chiropractic adjustment, nothing specific?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's, most chiropractic adjustments is that upper cervical is where most of the change happens because that's where the brain and the spinal cord connect. That's where you get most of your nervous system production. So that's where they're doing the studies right now. So UK is actually putting out more studies than we are right now on chiropractic, which is wonderful to see. So yes, you can do that with preemptive. Most of our patients that do get adjusted once a month also notice less colds and flus just in general. So. But we like to think that our patients are amazing because they also follow diet plans and they're doing very good on eating vegetables and making sure that they decrease their sugar amounts.
I had read where sugar
Right?
on your immune system for 6 hours or something like that.
Yes. Just as much as an hour less of sleep can decrease your immune system by up to 30%. So very important to be getting our sleep in as well. 8 hours. 8 hours.
Any tips on that?
There is actually diurnal beats. Like a lot of people think I'm crazy, but music makes a big difference. And there is it's an app called, I believe it's called Diurnal Beats, and that has actually helped people fall asleep and stay asleep longer. So
It's called what?
diurnal, D-I-U-R-A-N-A-L, sorry, beats.
I think there's a YouTube video.
Yes, there are. But it helps with your circadian rhythm and slowing the brain down. No screens 30 minutes before bed. Not even a Nook. You don't get to have that screen. You have to hold on to a book. Good old-fashioned book, paper, coloring, whatever you want to do, but no screens 30 minutes before bed. Move your phone 6 feet away from you. That helps just help people fall asleep as well. When you have that phone close to you, they have found that it tends to create. Well, you can still have the phone for your alarm. You just have to get up and walk across the room to hit snooze.
Look at it when I get up in the night.
Oh, see, that's a bad idea. That's a bad idea. What are you doing? Then you get to sit there and go, what time is it? Oh gosh, it's 3:30. I haven't been able to sleep. Yeah.
How much longer do we have to lay here?
Right, exactly. So yes. Any other questions? Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for coming in. I try to keep it a little short and sweet, but those are your immune products that you can start to work with. Of course, if you get 3 to 5 days in and you don't feel like you're getting any better, get in and go see your doctor. Goodness gracious, don't wait. So, yes. Have a great night. Drive safe. Thanks for coming.